Welcome, everybody. We will be waiting for all the participants to join us, and we will be starting very soon. Thank you for coming. All right, let's start. Welcome everybody to the second session of the ABIS Horizon Europe Funding webinar series. We are very pleased to see you here. I can see a lot of familiar faces seeing from the first webinar, but for those who are coming in and joining us for the first time, I would also like to explain why we are doing this and how we started this initiative. Based on the ABIS survey that we conducted in the early 2020, where we wanted to find out the priorities of our network, we found out, and the results pointed out, that our academic members see research funding and collaboration as one of the top 3 challenges that they are facing. As part of the jobs of many of our academics, it is to apply regularly for projects to secure funding that will finance their research, their academic activities, and sometimes even to secure their own job. This process in many cases is very time and resource consuming and doesn't bring in the wished desired outcomes. Sometimes the work starts and the university and business schools reaches out to its partners. They start putting together a consortium and working on framing the idea, when it often doesn't actually result in submitting a proposal in the European Commission's deadline. This can happen because of many factors: lack of human resources or of time, lack of expertise, or of others. And so to support our members in their continuous efforts in obtaining European funding, we have planned this ABIS Horizon Europe Funding webinar series. This webinar series aims to exchange knowledge and inform our business academic network about the EU funding, and to provide with some practical insights and tips on how to submit a winning project proposal. Now, before I introduce you today, before I introduce today the topic of today's webinar and our speaker, I would like to ask you to let us know what are your biggest challenges that you have maybe hard time overcoming when applying to EU funding. I will start a poll now. So I cannot start a poll, but I will ask you to write down in the chat what are the biggest challenges, what are the biggest efforts that you put in when applying to European funding. It can be writing the project proposal or finding the ideal call. It can be creating the budget or creating a strong consortium. So please write down in the chat what are the struggles that you have to overcome. We would like to continue this webinar series in the early 2021, and that is why we are asking you, so that we can bring you with the most specific topics that are relevant to you and that are tailored to your needs. Now let me see if somebody put down in the chat. So I can see allocating enough time and people to write the actual proposal. A problem or challenge with time and resources. Yes, limited time with the calls. Pitching the winning ideas. Finding the right partners and agreeing on responsibilities. Yes, again, time limitation. Time limitation with the quality that is necessary. Okay, great. Justifying impact. Thank you very much. Keep these responses coming. We will use it later on to fit your needs in our next webinars. And so now just a quick recap of the housekeeping rules. Please use the chat to type in your questions for the Q&A that we will be having by the end of the webinar. Keep them coming as our speaker will be talking. We have our chat facilitator, Jason, who will be collecting them, and he will be presenting them straight to our speakers. Now on today's topic. So after a successful launch of the event last week, which was on the introduction to Horizon Europe, with our speaker, Julien Guerrier from the European Commission, we will today focus more generally on what are the main elements and what are the fundamentals of a successful project proposal. What are really the key things that we have to bear in mind with when applying for EU funding, when building a consortium, when writing project proposals and submitting it, so that it has the biggest chances and the highest possibility to grab attention of the evaluators and then eventually win the project. Now I'm very pleased to introduce to you our expert speaker, Anita Tregner-Mlinaric. She's the Vice Chair of the MSCCA Advisory Board at the European Commission and Senior EU Affairs Expert and Program Manager at Meta Group. And also today she will be accompanied by her colleague, Andrea Di Anselmo, the Vice President of the Meta Group. Welcome. Now, Anita has more than 15 years of work experience in management and implementation of EU and international projects. Her experience dates from the program FP6, which lasted from 2002 to 2006, and she particularly focuses in the field of research and innovation. Anita is also a recognized expert in the field of European policies, internationalism, practices, and advocacy. She is also Vice Chair of the H2020 Advisory Board of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions at the European Commission and a member of the International Association of Women Specialists for European Policies and an external expert to the European Commission, where she gives her expertise in the fields of interregional innovation partnerships, research and innovation systems, and competitiveness in SMEs. Moreover, Anita is also a recognized S3 expert, due to which she is providing consultancy services and the technical assistance on the subject to the European regions, with a focus at development of the cross-border investment projects and the entrepreneurship. So thank you very much for accepting this invitation, Anita, to be here today. And without further ado, I'm giving you the floor. You can share your screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katarina. I'm honored with the invitation. And as you said, I'm here with my Vice President of Meta Group that will be joining me in this event today and also intervene very needed and very possible in terms of certain parts of the content. All of this that you explained about my experience, thank you very much in putting it into those words. But I would say that, most important part of what I do, it's really related to implementation of EU projects. And that's why we think that there are certain tips and knowledge we can share in that regard. And we hope that you will find it useful. It is not that we have that much time to go into details of everything. You will see that there are a lot of slides that we have prepared for you, in which we will not be able to go into detail, but we wanted to for them to have you, so that once shared, that hopefully you can find them very useful when you will be working on your proposals. But in any case, we hope that we'll be able to touch on the most important things today, some that we will also be able to answer through your questions. But then also later on, as already agreed with Katerina, if need be, we can repeat more or do more of these seminars and go into detail, especially when it comes to exploitation and impact, that, as you know, it was very important part of Horizon 2020, and it's even having a bigger part and role it will have in Horizon Europe. So it will be very important to be advanced, I would say, in that area in particular, and to master it, because at the end, this is where really evaluators put their focus. But let me share my screen and let us start with the presentation. Okay, I hope that you see it on the screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. Okay, so I was already introduced, so I will not say more, and I'll lose time on that. Maybe just to say a few more words on Meta Group, which is the company that I represent. We really do have a very long experience in implementing EU projects. Meta Group is being on the market for more than 25 years. And apart from the advisory work that we do, and we work a lot, of course, with European Commission and the institution, and being members of very relevant European associations and groups, and also taking expert positions in them. We also have fund management part of the company that we are managing as well. But maybe most importantly, especially having in mind that today's session is this expertise that we have in particular in exploitation, as mentioned already before, because we through years now we've been awarded with the technical assistance of the European Commission in that regard. So we have provided services in actually trying to provide expertise to Horizon 2020 projects, to many of them across Europe, in order for them to really improve that part. Because, as you know, it is great when you are awarded with the project, but then you also then it's also very important that that you exploit the results, because this is one of the requirements of the European Commission as well. So we've been running these servers for a long time, and as I said, we will be more than happy also to provide you with, in particular, more information in that regard. So the expertise we have, and we hope that we will also, prove this, through this content that we'll be sharing with you today. But as said, we also at your disposal if you will have any questions in that regard later on as well. So going back to today's topic, so what are the fundamentals of building a successful project proposal, and actually where to start from? As you already mentioned in the questions that you were having, it is always like, well, why actually to participate? Because it takes time, it takes resources, and we have other things to do. So this is the matter actually of prioritizing and thinking, where do you strategically see yourself or your organization? And usually what we see and what are the answers to that, when it comes, at least from the institutional perspective, that yes, it's very important to participate, because if nothing, for funding and budgets, because unfortunately, as we can see, the national budgets are shrinking, and then very often we are going after European funding, because this is where we can secure some financial resources, and it is important for our work. Then even most importantly, from what we hear also from the others, it's this type of prestige, because being part of international European community matters. And if you want to build your reputation at the international or EU level, then you have to be visible. And in this case, being part of European projects, it's very important one, because you meet partners, and by this you gain visibility, but also you get closer to the European institutions. And you can, in a way, advocacy and lobby them, because you will have the opportunity to show your expertise in that regard, and in that way position your institution. And for most of us being in Brussels, this is one of very important parts of the activities that we do. And then it is, as I said, it is funding, because it provides funding for strategic and big projects that you have. And this is where the focus mostly on. And also, when it comes to, decreasing of course, this is also very important, because it can help to decrease the administrative overheads. The similarly comes, when we are looking at it from the individual perspective, because again, funding helps to find budgets for your research. It then brings you closer to the international community. You have a better outreach. You have more chances to have a good collaboration with partners that you would maybe not usually meet in the daily work that you do. And again, it brings you prestige, because you become more known within, but also outside of your organization. So then how to prepare to participate? Again, when we are looking at it from the institutional perspective, we know and we see that it's very important that you have kind of an advocacy plan in mind, because it is very important that you get closer, to those target stakeholders that are important, for your work and where you want to be known. As well as that you take part in the European institutions and associations as you are part of ABES, because this helps this helps with your visibility and with your outreach. And again, it also brings you to prestige of some sort. So it is very important that you know your own stakeholders and that you know how to get closer to them. Then it's very important to be active, because being members of associations or etc., it's not enough. You need to utilize and leverage from that, and be present and be active in them. So it is very important to know the institutions and to get a part in the public consultations of the Commission, because this brings you closer to the content that you need to know. As well as to have established cooperation with national contact points, because they always have a very good, they're always very good source of information, and can provide you with some pre-advanced information, how we call it. But also, it is important that you have some other steps secured, like that to which events you are supposed to attend, because there are a lot of info days and brokerage events that are very good source of information in terms of understanding the content, as well as get closer to the potential partners and building of the consortium. And then also it is important, as you already said now in this opening, and while asking questions to the participants, resources are very important. So you need to secure the team, you need to secure the financing for them so that they can work on the proposal and do their work, as well as the administrative support. And at the institutional level, it is very important to secure and to have established this kind of backup or grant offices, how we call it, because once you have the team that is dedicated on working on proposals, it's much easier than to be sure that you will also be able to prepare them timely and successfully as well. At the individual level, this is more or less the same, because again, as at the institutional level, you need to know what your strengths and focus, where your strengths and focus is. So, if it doesn't, it is not a good idea that you go into some unknown fields, where your strategic, where your expertise lays, this is where you're supposed to focus. So for us as Meta, because we developed this this exploitation, expertise in exploitation and impact, this is where we also build further our experience. And then it's also, again, you know, you need to know by the field you want to, the field you want to exploit, you know, who are your target partners, and how to get closer to them. Again, you know, to try to establish which are the important associations that you want to take part of. Join the relevant cost actions. And again, you know, this type of, you know, Horizon 2020, or now that will be Horizon Europe Info Days and events, again, you know, to see which are the important topics that will be displayed that you would like to attend to get more information. And very often then the people from the commission are over there, like the speaker you had at the last week, where you can ask direct questions and get clarifications. And of course, it is very important to attend the project writing courses, because they can also help a lot to gain this type of expertise. And then another very important part is really to understand the working program. As you know now, the working program for 2021 is being published, or it is going to be. We had a chance to see it. So it is very important to get to know the program and the content, because this will also help you to see which calls and tenders are going to be published on which topics, so that you start thinking in which ones you want to participate. And then as well to follow and monitor when then there are again going to be dedicated brokerage events to those, so that you have the opportunity to get more information, that you also acquire which partners and groups are already being consolidated around this topic, so that you can, you know, get closer to them. And in particular, the brokerage events are very good opportunities for this, because already very often some of those have been formed, and they actually are coming to these events, so that they are because of the fact that they are looking for more partners. And some of them already have pretty clear ideas on what and how they want to approach certain call. So this makes and facilitates the process, you know, much better, and you don't lose that much time in finding those, or, you know, even, you know, thinking of the content in full that needs to be dedicated to this topic. And as said, ABIs and other associations, you know, can help also a lot in terms of finding partners, or getting you closer to the European Commission, in order to get more information about the program and the specific calls, and NCP networks, again, as mentioned. So here are just the examples of some of the days and some of the posters that you've been seeing, either on behalf of the Commission or other associations. Of course, in the past, we were attending them in person, but now, unfortunately, these are mostly coming digital. And this is also just one of an example of brokerage event. That was in 2019, and it was advertised by the European Commission, and it was related actually to societal challenges call. What also we do as a company is that, knowing where our interest lays, we dedicate time regularly on monitoring the calls. So first, it comes to understand the working program, and then, you know, to look for these specific calls, and of course, you know, to have in mind the deadlines that we have to reach, so that we get prepared in time. As you know, with the tenders are maybe, you know, not publicized as much, so it's very important, and, you know, what we do and we propose, that again, you know, based on the topics that you would like to follow, that you register, so that you get announcements for the tenders, and that you can also then apply for them in time. Usually this is done by, you know, that you identify the keywords, and then it's much easier to get and find out if there's a tender of particular interest. And then there are some specific calls for the technical assistance, etc., that these are actually type of invitation to tenders that we also monitor, because these are the types of tenders that we also apply. And then, of course, you need to read the guide to understand the eligibility criteria and how to apply for those. So now getting back to some tips on then how to write a successful proposal. As it says here, there is no right way to do that. But there are some tips that we can share with you that at least made us successful in applying. So as it's important to know the working program and to monitor the calls, it is also very important that you analyze it properly. So it is very important that you understand, what is expected, once you read the call, and what is the impact that is supposed to be achieved through this call. So you really have to put a lot of attention on what is the specific challenge that you need to address, and how you can contribute for this challenge to be solved. So you have to really be careful about this and really think, how you can address it, and that, this expected impact, that each single word of it is specifically analyzed so that you can address it properly. What also we do, and we really highly recommend, is that, once, you have the idea of it, and once you analyze it, that you have as many people as possible that you are talking to, in order to just get their opinion, if they understand this in the same way as you do. And also if maybe they see it from a different approach, because usually, more eyes, it's really helping to contribute to get more ideas on, how to read this and what is the interpretation of it. And in particular, that you get together in the keywords that you need to think of and display. It is also very helpful if, once you analyze the call, that you put together a one-pager concept note in which you actually summarize, what is the main topic of this call, how do you plan to address it, and what is the impact that you want to achieve with it. So how we do it is that in one or two pager, we include the background information about the call, then the initial idea that we want to address through our proposal that we have in mind, that we already started thinking of the project acronym that we want to dedicate to this proposal, and also to start thinking about the objective, the target countries that we want to address with it, and also the beneficiaries of the program. We also in this already include the list of the work packages that we have in mind, what we think that could be the initial list of outcomes and deliverables, and what is the impact that we would like to achieve with it. And we always try to think as at least some colleagues are always, acting as their evaluators on the other hand, because we want to make sure that we are not missing anything. So we are jointly thinking what are the innovative solutions that we want to propose, because this is something that they look very closely. Are the numbers that we are having in mind credible for what we are proposing? Do we know that there is already something similar existing in the market? And also, we also think already at this point, what is the sustainability that we see in what we are proposing? Because, as you know, this is another very important aspect that Commission is looking at. So we also do a lot of research, meaning that we are trying really to see what we are thinking in mind, if it's already existing. And also we are trying to see who are already established players in the market in that regard, that we would then ideally would like to have as partners, because we want to build a very strong consortium. So we want to know who is already out there. And this is what this slide is exactly talking about, because it is very important to build a strong consortium. So very often, as you also already know, once you establish a collaboration, you're mostly going with these partners from one proposal to another, because you already trust them, you know their expertise. But of course, you need to change. You need to involve more people as as you progress. But also, this is very much depending on the topic. So you need to know what are the value chains, around the proposal that you are building. Who are the main actors? And then actually those that would be the beneficiaries and end users, that you include them in being partners in your consortium, because with them, then you can the best address the impact and actually build a credible proposal. So it is very important that you know who they are, so that you include the main ones being part of it. And then also the other supporting actors, that you secure their support through either support letters, etc. But that also it is visible that they are taking the part in your proposal. And as I said, it's very important that you are objective and that you're also including other people, because it is very important to have more voices. And that it's also very important that you think and plan, how you're going to measure what you are planning to address, because this is also very important from the evaluation perspective. So for all of this to be done, we always having a checklist for ourselves that we use for the proposals. So when we are thinking about this impact and exploitation part, out of which, the proposal, this is the main part that the proposal needs to be built around. We try to think, and with what we are addressing, what are going to be the effects and benefits. Then how wide will the market, and range of these effects and benefits be? How are we going to measure them? How are we going to verify them? Who is going to directly benefit from these project results? Who are our target groups that we are having in mind? Who could indirectly benefit from them as well? How are we going to get in touch with those actors? How much time and costs it will need to produce these benefits? And if there are barriers and obstacles, how are we going to overcome them? Trust us, once you will have answer to these questions, then you already have a solid concept and proposal in mind. So in summary, how then, this time-wise, looks like when you are preparing proposal. What we suggest, and this is really very relevant so that you don't rush and that you can have enough time to prepare a quality proposal, is that you start at least 8 weeks in advance. For us, this means that actually we start even much earlier, because as I said, you first you get to know the working program, and you know where your focus is going to be. So then, you already you should already know, at least at that period, that you will be applying for this. So 8 weeks, it's to start the preparation and to see who potential partners can be. And then minimum to have 4 weeks in preparing the call. So in the first week, it's that you think of the partners and that you see who would be those that will be then forming the strong consortium, that you work on this concept note, and that you also involve the external support. Then in the second, to third week, you actually start working with your partners, and then you go further from turning this concept note into the first draft of the proposal, and you are involving your partners in also writing their parts, and you are trying to put the proposal little by little together. Then you have third to fourth week to polish the content, so that you start adding visuals and graphics, because you also know this is very important for the proposal, that you check the consistency and cross-reference with the eligibility of the call, and that you present well the strengths of your partners, so that you have their CVs, the background information, that everything is covered in that part. And the last week, it's really just for proofreading. so that you have, that you go together with your colleagues and the colleagues from the consortium through the proposal, that you check, that you add, if you think that some things are missing. And also, as we say here, that you obsessively check if you are fulfilling all the criteria, so that you don't get into the danger of really missing, something important prior to the submission, which will then lead to actually losing the opportunity to submit the application or to get rejected because you didn't have everything prepared and submitted in time. So it's the most important thing is to start early, that you pick the best partners for the consortium, and that you are really sure about the message that you are passing, and that you are addressing the challenge in an appropriate way, as it's mentioned in the call. And now, just to go quickly through this part of impact and exploitation, because as said, this is now the most important part being evaluated when it comes to the proposal, and it's getting even more importance when it comes to Horizon Europe. So as it says here, the best excellence part cannot compensate for an unconvincing impact statement or the lack of a comprehensive implementation plan. So with that in mind, you need to think, when working on a proposal. So the most important part, when thinking of it is that, thinking what innovation are you bringing in the market with your proposal, and what is your unique value proposition. So in that regard, you need to think, as it says here, what is the amazing impact that you're going to bring with your proposal, meaning that you really need to have in mind the customers, the market, the value chains, the operations, and actually the impact, meaning, what changes, your innovation is going to bring. So when it comes to the expected impacts and how to write that part, it is usually how we do it is that, when it comes to the general overview, this is a short summary that you put in half of a page. And then for each expected impact that you contribute half of a page, so meaning to 2 pages that you explained it is all. You should always present qualitative as well as quantitative information, because everything is measurable and you need to have this in mind. And also you need to make a reference to the technology readiness level that you are planning to achieve. This is just to show you how you can write it in terms of a table that can be very useful when thinking of it. Because when structured like this will lead you into thinking what elements you need to have in mind when address it. And also what is very important to underline, that you need to emphasize how your project is going to reinforce European competitiveness. So how will the target sector change by this? Which additional sectors could also be interested into that? And also you need to put some lines on the environmental impact as well, even though, as it says here, there'll be no penalty points if you don't do that, but this is usually very, very appreciated. And also societal impact, and the gender one in particular now lately, it's very much needed, and please don't forget about it, because the evaluators look at it very closely.
Anita, I just wanted to remind you that we are running a bit out of time for the Q&A. So if you could wrap it up in 5 minutes, that would be great.
Yes, I'm actually getting now to that. This is just to show you, we put here some examples of negative evaluations as well as the positive one, so that you also have a look at what the evaluators really, thought as lacking when, looking at some of the proposals. And as you can see, there is a lot about, IPR, or, not identifying right targets groups, or insufficient development and dissemination exploitation plan that was missing, as well as, some positive comments, when you see that this was well addressed, and in particular that the sustainability, was very well presented and reached through the proposal. And when it comes to the impact, what is that is evaluated and what you have to have in mind and what are the elements of it, it's actually the effectiveness of exploitation measures, including the IPR. So you need to have this in mind, especially if we are talking about innovation actions, dissemination and management of research data. Then, when it comes to exploitation, it's very important to have in mind, what is actual exploitation, and that this is actually the use of, either further research activities of the research results, either product or process that you are developing, certain service that you are planning to provide, or the standardization of activities. And also it is important to have in mind that when it comes to dissemination, that this means that we are talking about the public disclosure of those results. And that also these results can be done directly or indirectly. So either that you use them directly when we are talking about further research activities, or indirectly when we are talking about the knowledge transfer, actually licensing and spin-offs. And here you also have some comments or tips when it comes to the Commission, what is expected and how to describe and form the exploitation in the proposal. And then, here also more tips on, how they can be described so that they're for maximizing of the results, and, what are the target groups that you need to have in mind. And it's always good to have primary and secondary, because then this is very positively evaluated. And then also, this is very important to have in mind that exploitation is not a deliverable. So you need to make the distinguish in between the two. The deliverables, yes, they come and you need to describe them, in each of the work packages. But when it comes to exploitation, this is actually a process. So you need to highlight it, in this way, and it's important to note it as such. And also, you also need to have in mind that it's good to have exploitation manager, because this is the person that is actually responsible for the process, and it's and actually the end result, which is the exploitation. This is just to note the tools that you can use for this process. We think that Lean Canvas, it's a very good approach, and it helps you really in thinking of what could be the exploitation path, especially when it comes to the fact that you need to build a business plan as a part of it as well, which is again the case when we come to innovation actions. And this is again some tips or some table that you can use in order to write well this part. And then for the business plan, these are the tips, what to have in mind when you are forming it. So what are the elements that you need to address, for this to be complete. And then again, these are some tips on how what elements to include again, and how this table should look like, so that you know that you have addressed all of them. And then, of course, it is also important to have in mind that, IPR, it is an important part of it. So you need to have some foregrounds in place, depending then, where, how deep you have to go into it. And you can have a look at this, what we have prepared here, so that you can follow some guidance in that regard. And then, as I mentioned already before, it is very important to have in mind the sustainability and replicability of what you are proposing, because this is something that is required. And as it said here, don't forget to mention it in part 2.2 of the proposal, because you need to demonstrate what is going to happen post-project and what are going to be the benefits of it. So how this sustainability is going to be reached. And then also, how are you gonna, convince the Commission that, their grant is not gonna be wasted, but there are gonna be benefits of it. and also how, if you will have a technology that you're proposing, then how is this gonna scale up? And just, some tips here when it comes to the dissemination of the project results. You also need to have in mind the process behind it. And especially if we are talking about, projects where we are developing the technology, then you also have to be very well aware, what can you disseminate and what not, what agreements you should have in place before you disseminate results, which are actually obligatory, but you need to know when and how to do it. And this is just, some rules for participation in Horizon Europe, but we are already aware of it. So which are the main actions and the funding rates, and, when it comes to indirect costs and how to calculate the daily rates. And as I was talking to Katarina, we will not go into financials here because this can be a webinar of itself. But what you probably already heard when it comes to Horizon Europe, that it appears that we will have some simplified rules, and we are really looking forward to that, and we hope that they will be introduced to us very soon. And these are just some of more tips in that regard. And again, when it comes to award criteria, that it's very important to mention that excellence, impact, and the quality and efficiency of implementation, it's it's really bringing a lot of points. So yes, I hope I was in time. I'm sorry. I know that this is a lot of content, but yeah, we don't have much time. But we hope that at least we brought closer to you, how we do it, and that maybe some of these tips will really help you when thinking and preparing for participating in the proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita. It was really an insightful presentation. I think we were all able to learn a lot of interesting insights and important information to improve the project management and project proposal writing of us all. I'm sure we will all need the time to reflect on it individually and with our research and project management teams to be able to implement this. It was really great. Thank you very much. We will be sharing the presentation slides, so do not worry, everyone, if you were not able to write down all of your notes that you wanted. You will have the possibility to download it, and we will be sending it out through Eventbrite email just afterwards. Now we have time for some Q&A, so please do write down your questions in the chat. Our chat facilitator, Jason, will collect them all and will give it to Anita or to Andrea to respond to. Now, before we start collecting them, I have a question to you, Anita. So you talked about building a strong consortium, which is really important for, as well as the proposal writing, and to be actually able to submit a proposal, but also for already the project implementation if we would win the project. So my question is how to build a strong consortium. Is it an advantage to put in the consortium partners that we already worked with in different projects, and to be also able to prove this? And how would you advise to manage a consortium in the early stage when we just try to develop ideas and we try to meet? This is always also very it can be a very frustrating process because of the times, scheduling, and very different ideas. Thank you.
Anita, do you want me to say a few words?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Andrea.
Because I mean, this challenge of building the consortium it's a very important, it's a crucial challenge, and it's very, very important to face it in the right way. Just let me tell you a few things. First of all, of course, working with partners that are, let's say, consolidated and well-known helps, because there is already a trusting relationship. There is already some knowledge background, and it's easier and faster to communicate and exchange ideas. But on the other side, the partnership should also be based on the specificity of the call and on the need to create an impact. So happens that for that specific call, for that specific challenge to be addressed, there is the need also of different kind of partners. For example, associations. Associations are always extremely important to ensure that dissemination is going to be efficient and effective, and to ensure the involvement of potential customers during the project life. Another important type of partners are representative of your target groups. This is important because having on board representative target groups allows you to validate your assumptions, allows you to test your solutions while you are developing them, and will help you out in saving a lot of time right after the project end to ensure that your result is used. So just to make a very, very long story short, it's important to work with partners that you have already good relationships with, but the partnership needs to be built according to the challenges addressed by the call, and having in mind that partners that will help you out in impact are going to be extremely important. And keep in mind that the partnership by itself, it's already a good business card, let's say, to win the proposal.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Now, another question about the gender equality and gender issues. So they must be now addressed also in the Horizon Europe projects, and it was already for the Horizon 2020 as well. Does this mean that there should be a specific even work package addressing it, or is it enough to have a certain deliverable focusing on it, or having it mentioned in the impact section?
Andrea, would you, or shall I?
No, please, please.
Well, so far we used to address it not in a separate work package, but mention in one paragraph how do we plan to address it. We don't know if this is going to be changed in Horizon Europe, and it will really need to that we have a dedicated work package to that. That may be the case. But at the moment, we still think that most probably, this is going to remain the same, so that it will be enough that this is well explained, how then this will be addressed by the proposal and in which way.
Thank you very much, Anita. Now I would like to ask Jason, do we have any questions in the chat that we can address to the speakers?
Yep, we do. And in fact, it continues with the theme on basically partners, but also maybe staff and more human resources. So there's one question on how many full-time staff would you recommend in writing the project proposal itself?
How many, sorry, how many?
Staff.
Full-time staff.
Full-time.
FTEs.
Not easy question, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because it depends on the call, in the sense that it depends on the call, and it depends on when you start to write down the proposal. Our experience is that it's better to have not an extremely big team, but a compact team, because this helps in brainstorming and in finalizing the proposal. My suggestion is to have within the consortium a sort of proposal manager who is also in charge of, let's say, coordinating all the different contributions and finalizing the main, let's say, backbone of the proposal. Somebody that helps the proposal manager in order to collect and coordinate with the other partners. This is also important for administrative purposes. And maybe a third person or somebody that can jump in and provide, let's say, ad hoc content connected to the specificities of the tender or of the call. And then one reference for each of the partners for the content, and one reference person for each of the partner for the administrative material.
It is, I would also add that it's very important first, to think, are you planning to have the coordinating role, or you plan to be a partner in a proposal? Because that, changes a lot the perspective in terms of how many people do you need. Because if you want to be the coordinator, then yeah, you need to have, let's say, more people, in the team. At least 3 to start with, 3 to 2 that will be then in charge of administrative issues, because then they will, as Andreas said, you also have to coordinate the consortium, and it's much more job for you than if you are a partner, because then you are asked, of course, to provide a certain content, but it's all more or less orchestrated, by the coordinator, who the partner that is in charge of writing and preparing the proposal. But that's why what we mentioned in the beginning, it's really very good, if possible, at the institutions, at your organizations, to have at least a small back EU office. And that you have a person that is dealing with management and proposal writing, and then at least 1 or 2 persons dealing with administration and financing, because then this helps a lot in distributing the burden. But before this was not the case, but now, because the complexity of putting proposals together, it's pretty high. Because they are so competitive. Now we see that also consortiums, when we start working with them, it is very important that you orchestrate the process. But now that also partners are much more willing and used to participating in proposals, so it's much more, there's much more commitment, and I would say responsibility. They are much more responsible in terms of providing the content timely, etc. We also try to have regular meetings while working on the proposal, so that everybody's in the loop, and that we share things timely. But then again, you really need to start in time, because you can have all the team in the world, but if you are having, if you are doing things not in time, and you're facing constraints, then it's too much stress, and you're really feeling into risk of not being able to put the content together and to submit it in a way that you are supposed to. So start preparation timely.
Thank you, Anita. Staying within the topic, you mentioned that it's good to have one team which is going to be supporting the administration task, and then one compacting for the writing. Now a question from our audience: would you say that the lead in the excellence part should also take the lead in the implementation and the impact part, so having one person, or would you suggest having different partners leads?
Again, as Anita was saying, it depends on how the coordinator is organized, and it depends on what are the main, let's say, the unique selling point, the unique value proposition of the coordinator. If the coordinator is strong on excellence, then it might have somebody else in handling the impact part, and vice versa. Sometimes you have coordinators who are able to cover the two things. So you may have different people within the same organization covering the two parts. Our experience is that usually the ones who have a clear understanding of impact are different from the ones who have a strong edge on excellence. But there is no rule. It depends on how the coordinator is organized.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I am mindful of the time, and I think we don't have any more question in the chat. So thank you very much, Anita, and thank you very much, Andrea, for your responses. They're very much appreciated, and I hope that we were able to answer as many questions that you have. First of all, I would like to thank you again, Anita, for your time and your dedication for this. Sorry. And secondly, thank you all for taking the time and for being here at the webinar series. So we will stay with all of you to bring you up to speed to any further developments on Horizon Europe and on this webinar. We would like to ask you to fill out the survey for us to, sorry for the noise, home officing. So please fill out the survey for us to understand what topics and challenges you would like us to focus on in the webinars in 2021. And this way we will make sure that our next webinars are topical and based on your needs. Now, thank you again, and we hope to seeing you soon. Thank you very much, Anita. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Ciao.
Bye-bye.